feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Left your feet don't touch the ground. Laughing off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, coffee steaming, smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up, feel the sound. Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I so do appreciate you tuning in today. We've got so much to get to, but did you guys see this? Somebody heckled President Donald Trump at this Ford plant yesterday, and Donald Trump mouthed the words F you and flipped them the bird. This guy at the Ford plant who has been suspended. By the way, we're going to get into that. President Donald Trump. This is the guy we all know and love. Check it out. Here we go. Can I just say that President Donald Trump is like my spirit animal? 2026, we're winning. I don't have time for you. I'm going to flip you off, and I'm going to give you the bird. Flip you the bird. So he flipped him off. There was disciplinary action taken against this Dearborn, Michigan truck plant worker. Okay, it was a plant worker. He yelled obscenities, yelled cuss words at President Donald Trump, at the President of the United States. And, you know, many Americans were taking to social media, they were taking to the internet, and they were saying, hey, before I make my next purchase, I want to know if this guy is going to face some sort of consequences for yelling obscenities at the President of the United States. 40-year-old TJ Sabula, he is being investigated and has been suspended. I don't think he's been officially fired, but the guy, he yelled out pedophile protector. Okay, and today's show, we are going to get into the Clintons and how they are not going before the Oversight Committee, despite them being asked and subpoenaed to do it. Now they're going to be held in contempt, according to Comer. So we're going to get into all that, but he shouted pedophile protector. Okay. Now he's been suspended from his job. That is the right approach here. And people are going to say, oh, Kat, are you for cancel culture? No, this is a private company. They can do what they want, but they can keep him on. They can not fire him. But the right approach here, if I was a boss in Ford's shoes here, the right approach here is not to have your employees doing things like that, because it's not representative of the company. Obviously, the company had President Donald Trump there. This is the president of the United States. No job on earth can you do something like that, shout obscenities at someone, except the president of the United States. He can pretty much get away with anything. He shouted out an obscene, he said F you, but he did it in response and flipped this guy off. But there's no job on earth where you can shout obscenities at someone, at a guest who's visiting your plant. Okay, when you work for a company, you represent that business. I would be surprised if they keep him on. Okay, because that's them's the rules. Okay, you don't yell obscenities at people who are visiting the plant. This would not fly in any job. Could you imagine? Somebody walking in the door of your business, say you work at a grocery store, and you just start shouting obscenities at random customers, right? And this was no random customer. This was the president of the United States. And I would like to point out that this was one heckler. Okay, a majority of the Ford workers, at least it looks like, according to video, they were begging for selfies with the president. And of course, 47 obliged. Take a look. See, this is a president who loves the American worker. You love to see it. This is completely epic. The experts are furious because now we've got information coming out of this Ford plant in Dearborn, Michigan, they are moving to 24 hours a day, 6 days per week, because the economy is booming. And the experts said, oh, you're never going to see this. You're never going to see this. We're going to be in a Great Depression. This plant is going for 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they're adding a third shift. Take a listen to President Donald Trump when questioned by reporters at the plant.
Saying their business is better than ever. They're doing 24 hours now, 6 days a week, and they do expansions, and they're building more plants in the United States because of tariffs. And Jim said, and Bill very strongly confirmed, they've never seen anything like it. In all of the years that they've been in business, they've never seen what's happening now like it. So it's a great honor. But so this plant, you might talk about it. This plant goes 24 hours around the clock. Before, it used to go 3 hours around the clock.
No, it will. So we're adding a third shift, and it's going to be running, as the president said, 24 hours, 6 days a week. And that just shows the demand there is for this product, which is the best-selling product, as you all know, in America. And it just gets hotter and hotter. So we have a great relationship with the president and his whole staff. They've been great to work with for us. He personally is incredibly responsive every time we need something or call. We very much appreciate it, and we couldn't be more excited. We're adding market share. We're growing as a company. We're adding jobs, not just here but elsewhere. Times are good for us.
And all of the U.S. automakers now are doing great. And before, they were having a really hard time. You could.
Yeah, of course they were having a really hard time because President Joe Biden with the electric vehicle credits. I was actually talking with somebody. A lot of people have gotten suckered into buying electric vehicles, and I feel really bad for them because they were promised the $4,000 tax credit through the Inflation Reduction Act, I think is what they squeezed it in. The Biden administration by Harris administration. And of course, what did Ford do? They tacked up the cost and inflation. This is how inflation, they put all this money into the economy, and they gave people $4,000 to go buy an electric vehicle. The workers weren't happy with it. There was no demand for it. They were trying to create demand for it by shoveling all this money into the economy and giving people $4,000 to go buy an EV. And then these suckers bought them. There's no electric vehicle chargers. You can't take a 3-hour trip in an electric vehicle, not to mention they've lost their value completely once you buy it and drive it off the lot because nobody wants it. So yeah, the automakers not having a good time prior to President Donald Trump. Now, the U.S. sales are the strongest. Okay, so Ford posted its strongest U.S. sales since 2019. I'm telling you, Trump is magic. Is he magic or what? Throw it in the comments section. I love living in the golden age. There's so much to get to. We know that Heckler had called out and called him a pedophile protector. Wrong. Today's show, we are getting into the Clintons and how they are in big trouble over the Epstein subpoenas. Their response here to being subpoenaed is by the Oversight Committee is something else. Very bold. And, this is Donald Trump's, house. Like there is a new Republican Party, a new sheriff in town. And you got Comer and a lot of MAGA Republicans trying to get to the bottom of Epstein. I've told you before that it's all silly. And I think that President Donald Trump knows this. And I don't know, I'm not privy to those conversations, obviously, what kind of national security issues there are surrounding the Epstein client list. But this was sealed. The courts have sealed the Epstein client list, and that was sealed by our intelligence agencies. And in order to unseal it, I would imagine the intelligence community, so your Tulsi Gabbard, would have to unseal that or direct the courts to unseal it. And even then, I think there's some legal hoops she would have to jump through because, you have to have separation of powers. So, yeah, we're never going to see those client lists. And what they voted on, the House and the Senate, they all voted on it pretty much unanimously. I think Clay Higgins was the only one who didn't vote for it. The extra release of the Epstein files, we're going to get some pictures. We're going to probably get some more flight logs, and we have the DOJ has released that. But we're never going to see the client list. This is something that has been sealed by the courts, and I don't even think you can unseal it. If you would, it's not the DOJ, it's not the FBI, it's the intelligence, the CIA, the National Director of Intelligence. That's Tulsi Gabbard. She would have to do something. But, with what we do have, you definitely see MAGA Republicans trying to hold people accountable, hence the Clintons being subpoenaed. So we're going to get to that. Ketanji Brown Jackson. She came up with a new word during this trans athlete case that took place yesterday morning. And I was watching, and I watched so you wouldn't have to, but she came up with a new word, and it has everybody laughing on the internet. The internet citizens are laughing at Ketanji Brown Jackson. So we're going to get to that. But the big story today is the Saudi Arabia, they are eyeing this regional vacuum. Iran, we know what's going on there. The rebels, they are trying to dismantle, crumble the Islamic Republic, who has had a theocracy over in Iran for a long time. And now all of a sudden, there's this rebellion, and if the rebels are successful, there is going to be a power vacuum, and I think that Saudi Arabia is going to fill that. So let's get to the Clintons first. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. So great to see all of you. Be sure to throw it in the comments section. Your favorite story today. Now drop the price of the Ford F-150 back to $25,000. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen. We'll have to see. But the Ford F-150, I'd love to see that price drop. But yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act. $4,000 they gave everybody for these electric vehicles. People went out and bought them, and then they're screwed with an $800 a month payment, and then they can't get out from, this crippling debt. And it's really sad to see. But now they are seeing increased sales. The auto workers are happy because you're not forcing demand. There was no demand for the EVs. That's what really destroyed, I think, the auto industry, was the tax credits and incentives to get people to go buy EVs. And whenever you try to force demand, it never works out in the economy. Usually really inflates when you do things like that. And we saw that under Joe Biden. What was it? 9% inflation. Absolutely insane. Let's get to Bill and Hillary. Bill and Hillary Clinton. Yes. I bet if you were a betting man, you would have guessed that they were not going to comply, and they were not going to comply with the subpoenas to testify in the Jeffrey Epstein case before the House Oversight Committee. Okay, so they already missed previous dates. We know this. They were called to testify. They were subpoenaed. And now Bill Clinton just missed another rescheduled appearance that was yesterday, slated for January 13th. Hillary Clinton is slated to testify today, January 14th. We'll have to see if she shows up. And if I was a betting woman, I'd bet that Hillary Clinton would not show up. Okay, the House Oversight Committee Chair, Republican Representative James Comer from Kentucky, confirmed the no-show. He says, I think everybody knows by now that Bill did not show up. And I think it's important to note that the subpoena has been voted on by a bipartisan group of members in this committee, bipartisan manner by this committee. And Comer told reporters this. He said, quote, no one is accusing Bill of any wrongdoing. We just have questions. That's why Democrats voted along with Republicans to subpoena Bill Clinton. So the Clinton lawyer made it clear that they are challenging the subpoenas, and they claimed in a letter to James Comer. So Bill and Hillary actually sent a letter to James Comer themselves, outside of their counsel, like their attorney. Okay, but they claimed in a letter to Comer that the Clintons had already provided, the attorney had drafted a letter as well. And they said that, or this attorney said that, hey, the Clintons, they knew, they already told you what they knew, and that the subpoenas issued by the, to get the president, the former president, and the Secretary Clinton are invalid and legally unenforceable. So I'm like thinking about this in the letter, the attorney sending it. They're like, President and Secretary Clinton is what he refers to Hillary and Bill as. And I think it's so funny. These people have to constantly stroke their egos. It's so hilarious. Like in this letter where this attorney is arguing where the subpoenas are invalid and unenforceable, he still has to slip in there that this is President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. Okay, so the Clintons themselves, like I said, the attorney sent a letter, but the Clintons also wrote a letter to James Comer. And the New York Times obtained it. I read through it. Bill threw it up on his Twitter page, which is kind of funny. His Twitter or X account, and he turned off all of the comments. So you can't comment on it. That's probably in the best interest that is in the best interest of Bill Clinton. Like he would be eviscerated if he, in the comment section, if he had allowed comments for this post. But anyway, the letter is trying to claim that they are standing up to tyrannical government. Okay. And in the letter, they brought up things like masked federal agents seizing people. And they brought up, even in this letter, an ICE agent that killed an unarmed mother. Of course, she was armed. She had a vehicle, and she was wielding a vehicle against an ICE officer. That is considered a deadly weapon legally if you prove the intent here. We saw the video footage, the subsequent video footage of the ICE officers. I don't know if they were body cams, but there was more video footage that had come out. It was clear she was smiling. Heck, I would even say laughing as she was running over this ICE officer. And you can hear the ICE officer being clunked with the car. So he was actually hit. So anyway, we've got Bill Clinton's letter here. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. It is lengthy. It is quite the letter. But you guys can go check out the letter in its entirety on X. I will read part of it. Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, its people, no matter the consequences. The X first couple wrote this in a, how would you say it? A combined letter, I guess. Here, I'll share with you what the letter looks like. Very lengthy. Here we go. William Jefferson Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton, January 13th, 2026. Hold on, I'll show this with you. It just seems so silly. Like, you've got the attorney saying President Clinton and Secretary Clinton, these subpoenas are invalid and unenforceable. Like, these people really think way too highly of themselves. So the very lengthy letter, they signed it. Basically what's going on here. In the letter, they said, for us, now is that time, meaning like it is time, like every person has to decide when they've had enough and when they're wanting to fight for this country. And this former first couple, they said, for us, it's that time. So even for the Clintons, this is like particularly very bold, very audacious. They are cannibalizing all of the false narratives, Democrat narratives, to help support their efforts to avoid testifying. Okay, they literally brought up the unarmed mother, who, by the way, has a rap sheet a mile long, including things like endangerment of a child. So they are weaponizing all of these false Democrat narratives that are out there, that federal agents are seizing people in their homes, U.S. citizens in their homes, which is a narrative, not true. They are going after, with lawful deportation orders, illegal immigrants who border jumped and violated federal immigration law. But they're using and weaponizing these narratives because they want to avoid testifying. Okay, so they're not avoiding appearing because they don't want to testify, which is exactly why I think that they're not coming to testify. I think that they don't want to testify because it would reveal some things inevitably. But they say that they're not testifying because they're so brave and they're principled people. And that's why they're not testifying, because they're standing up to Donald Trump and ICE. Okay, the gall, the boldness here is something else. So their response here to not showing up to testify is something else. And it's something else for even the Clintons. Okay, so if in fact they knew nothing about Jeffrey Epstein and his dealings, the human trafficking, and who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked humans to. Okay, he was convicted on human trafficking, sex trafficking. I want to know who he trafficked those humans to. I don't know if we'll ever get that answer. Like I said, those documents, the client list, the people who were in on all of this, that's been sealed by the courts and has to be unsealed by intelligence agencies. And I don't know if they'll ever unseal it, because it's a matter of national security. And that might be true. Like I said, I'm not privy to the conversations. I would imagine that there would be complete global economic collapse. Okay? The banks would go down. I mean, you go into boardrooms and start cuffing bank CEOs and prime ministers. Like, what kind of effect is that going to have on the economy, the global economy? People are not going to trust the banking institutions anymore. If it's revealed that a lot of those CEOs were clients of Jeffrey Epstein's. So perhaps, and I don't know what I would do in the president's shoes. Perhaps there's a good reason why they have sealed this client list. I can't think of, even if global economic collapse, I would rather know the truth. But like I said, it's not up to President Donald Trump. Maybe he could direct the intelligence communities, but even then, I think once the court seals it, it's kind of hard to unseal it. And that was at the direction of a prior administration to seal that information. So anyway, let me get back to the Clintons. The Clintons, if they didn't know anything, why not just show up and answer the questions? Okay. Why not do that? Okay. For starters, Bill Clinton, like, inevitably, the reason why he's not showing up to testify, inevitably, he's going to have to talk about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, because there are several photos of him with Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm going to show you some of them. There's photos of him and Jeffrey Epstein. And the pictures show exactly why he should be testifying. But he's not. Obviously, he's avoiding it. And I really hope that James Comer, what's the word? It doesn't chicken out and actually holds these people, Bill and Hillary, in contempt for not showing up to testify. But anyway, we've got these photos. The DOJ, at the direction of Congress, okay, the Senate and the House, we remember this, the unanimous, mainly unanimous votes in both the House and Senate, directed the DOJ to release more. Okay, so we already had somewhat of a rollout from Pam Bondi. And I think that Pam Bondi really screwed the pooch here, because she was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to roll this all out. But she didn't have all of it. And I think that she was really just trying to impress her new boss, President Donald Trump. And she gave the binders to all those conservative influencers. And there was just nothing in them that we didn't already know already. Okay. And I think that she was just kind of showboating. So subsequently, you've got the members of Congress directing the DOJ to release more. So they voted on that, and they did. The DOJ review had determined that 1,200 victims and their relatives were identified. They released the names, but they were redacted in order to protect the victims, because the law that had passed both the House and Senate, the now law, was signed, said, hey, you have to redact all the names of the victims. So their faces were redacted in photos, their names were redacted. But there's hundreds of thousands of pages of these new DOJ records. Some of them are flight logs, contact lists. They're not going to be the client list, the people who Jeffrey Epstein actually trafficked the humans to. Like I said, those are sealed. But one of the more interesting things to come out of this law that the House and the Senate passed unanimously, and the DOJ, listened, and they released, a review and some records. One of the most interesting things that came out were more pictures. We saw some pictures prior to this, secondary release. We saw some pictures, but now we've got way more, including Jeffrey Epstein with Bill Clinton. And, I think it's so funny. Ghislaine Maxwell, I've got some of the pictures. Some of them are in hot tubs. And I think it's so funny that the Democrats have wanted to make this about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Donald Trump. You're a pedophile protector. Okay, no, Bill Clinton is the pedophile protector. He's not even coming to answer questions before the House Oversight Committee, although he clearly had a very close relationship, them being in a hot tub together, and some of the redacted victims are sitting on Bill Clinton's lap. He's probably got to answer for that. So heckling President Donald Trump when Donald Trump is not in any of those photos. Like he has like 1 or 2 photos with Jeffrey Epstein. He's not in any of these secondary release photos released by the DOJ, really. So President Donald Trump, doesn't have near as many pictures with Jeffrey Epstein as Bill Clinton does. Bill Clinton can be seen here swimming in a pool with Ghislaine Maxwell or a hot tub or something. I don't know. And there is a victim, obviously, because the victims have been redacted. So the victim is seen in a hot tub with another redacted person. Okay, so Bill Clinton is seen with 2 redacted people, meaning that those individuals are victims. Let me share with you some of the photos. Okay, so here we go. This, I think, is Mick Jagger. Yeah. There's some very prominent people in these photos with Bill Clinton. So that is a redacted face there in the middle. So victim. We have more photos on his lap. Bill Clinton, another victim. What we believe to be a victim on his lap. I mean, pretty much. So, yeah, you've got him with Jeffrey Epstein here. I'm looking at Mick Jagger. Where is Bill Clinton? Yeah, you've just got Jeffrey Epstein, Michael Jackson. These are notes from the latest Jeffrey Epstein files. Claim that the pedophile would ask to see girls' identification to prove they were under 18. Okay, so there's a little note here talking about that. At one point, redacted witnessed him asking for ID to the girl, and he wanted to make sure he wanted to ask for an ID, and he wanted to make sure under 18 because he wasn't believing them because redacted messed up by bringing more older girls. So there was a document that was released in this latest release of the files. There's the letter. Okay, so Bill would fly to on Epstein's plane to do work trips for the Clinton Foundation. Work trips to do Clinton Foundation work. Now it's not clear where all these pictures are from. Like if these are actually on the island or like where this dinner party is at, where the pool is at. And I'm going to get to the other part of the photo dump here. I thought I had the pool ones. I guess I don't. I've got to find those. There's Bill Clinton in the pool with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein and a couple of redacted victims. But like I said, not sure where that pool is, not sure where the dinner table is, but clearly these pictures show that there was a lot of interaction and it raises questions. Okay. And Comer has a lot of material here to grill them on. Like, hey, obviously, you're with this redacted girl. She's sitting on your lap. Where were you? This is a victim. Is this a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's? Why were you there? Like, he's got so much material here. And I mean, we all knew this was coming, that they weren't going to show up for the subpoenas or to testify, and that they weren't going to show up. So now it's up to Comer. Okay. And he said that he was going to take action. I hope that he actually does. Take a listen to James Comer here. Here we go.
Unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Yeah, good job.
With that, be happy to answer any questions real quick.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So what does that mean? He's going to hold them in contempt of Congress. Now, they said he wouldn't say if he would pursue Hillary for contempt as well. She's obviously scheduled to appear today. Most likely she's going to be a no-show, and most likely holding her in contempt of Congress like Bill is next. So that's coming next. So I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the Supreme Court, because that was an interesting morning yesterday. The justices, they were listening to oral argument on two cases that may very well determine the future of this lunatic policy where boys can participate in girls and women's sports. Boys and men can participate in girls and women's sports. So that's policy state by state. There's this lunatic policy out there that allows that, and that's being challenged in the Supreme Court. And you could pretty much guess here that there were some wild comments, some real jaw droppers, specifically from a biologist, not a biologist, Ketanji Brown Jackson. There were some comments made during oral arguments that you have just got to listen to. But I'm going to give you an update on that. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back. Just give me about, 50 seconds.
Check your blind spots. Men love to call things out. Weakness, hypocrisy, failure. We're wired to spot threats and take action. But Jesus didn't say, never judge. He said, judge not, that you be not judged. Why? Because judgment without humility is a trap. It turns you into a sniper with a log jammed in your eye. Matthew 7 hits hard. Jesus calls out a man who sees a speck in his brother's eye, but ignores the plank in his own. He's not saying, don't correct. He's saying, clean your lens first. Self-examination before confrontation. It takes guts to get real with your own sin, to admit you've gone soft, to face your pride, lust, laziness, or bitterness head on. But that's what real men do. They sharpen themselves before they sharpen others. Jesus didn't just want behavior police. He wanted heart warriors. Men who get the plank out, then humbly help a brother see clearly. Men who don't just flex spiritual authority, but walk with spiritual maturity. In verse 6, it's about discernment. Don't toss holy things to pigs. Don't waste truth on ears that mock it. Know when to speak. Know when to walk away. Before you blast through your next workout, check your form. Same with life. Patriot Pump fuels clean, focused energy, but you've still got to show up. Power with purpose. Clarity with strength. That's how you train. That's how you lead.
Hey, hit that like button, share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you being here. Subscribe to the channel. We're really trying to get to 1,050 by the end of the week here, so be sure to subscribe. First up, we've got to talk about this lawyer. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Ketanji Brown Jackson. She made some really jaw-dropping comments during oral arguments yesterday at the Supreme Court. They're listening to two cases that are going to determine the future of the lunatic policy where men and boys can participate in girls' sports. Okay, so first up, we have this lawyer for the plaintiff, and transgender woman. So this is a man pretending to be a girl. People get confused. Transgender woman is just a guy pretending to be a girl. Lindsay Hecox Okay, so the plaintiff is Lindsay Hecox and is being represented by Kathleen Hartnett. Okay, in oral arguments. Okay, so we've got the lawyer Kathleen. Okay, and she struggled to produce a definition of something most humans have known since, well, forever. The definition of man and the definition of woman. And she was undergoing questioning by Justice Alito, this lawyer, Kathleen, and she really sounded distinctly unsure of herself. Here, take a listen. Here we go.
Well, to pick up on the issue of discrimination on the basis of transgender status, let me go to some basics. Do you agree that a school may have separate teams for a category of students classified as boys and a category of students classified as girls?
Yes, Your Honor.
If it does that, then is it not necessary for there to be, for equal protection purposes, if that is challenged under the Equal Protection Clause, an understanding of what it means to be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is that definition? For equal protection purposes, what does it mean to be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman?
Sorry, I misunderstood your question. I think that the underlying enactment, whatever it was, the policy, the law, we'd have to have an understanding of how the state or the government was just understanding that term to figure out whether or not someone was excluded. We do not have a definition for the court. And we don't take issue with we're not disputing the definition here. What we're saying is that the way it applies in practice is to exclude birth sex males categorically from women's teams, and that there's a subset of those birth sex males where it doesn't make sense to do so according to the state's own interest.
Well, how can a court determine whether there's discrimination on the basis of sex without knowing what sex means for equal protection purposes?
I think here we just know that we basically know that that they've identified pursuant to their own statute, Lindsay qualifies as a birth sex male, and she's being excluded categorically from the women's teams as the statute. So we're taking the statute's definitions as we find them, and we don't dispute them. We're just trying to figure out, do they create an equal protection problem?
All right, suppose this.
Wow, that was a bunch of word salad. Here, I've got the definition for you. A person with XY chromosome pair, that is a guy. That's dude, boy, man. And if a person has XX chromosome pair, that is a girl or a woman. It's really not all that complicated. And she was kind of going back and forth with Alito there, Justice Alito. She says, and we don't take issue with we're not disputing the definition. She says, what we're saying is that the way it applies in practice is to exclude birth sex males. So she uses this word, males, birth sex males, categorically from women's teams. And there's a subset of those birth sex males where it doesn't make sense to do so according to the state's own interest. So Alito, he says, well, how in the world can this court determine whether there's discrimination if we don't know on the basis of sex, okay, discrimination on the basis of sex, without knowing what sex means for equal protection purposes? She goes on and she says, well, I think here we just know it is, well, we basically know as she stumbles a little bit, that the identified person to their own statute, they've identified person to their own statute. And Lindsay, so the plaintiff here, the man pretending to be a woman, qualifies as a birth sex male, and he's a he, being excluded categorically from women's teams as the statute. We're taking the statute's definitions as we find them, and we don't dispute them. We're just trying to figure out, do they create an equal protection problem? Okay, lots of word salad there. Let me break it down for you. Kathleen Hartnett, this lawyer, basically what she's arguing here is birth sex male. It's a squeeze, and she's basically saying that sex is determined not genetically, but determined at birth by the doctor. Okay. It is, we know, determined at conception genetically XXXY. But she's arguing that Lindsay Cox is a boy and has been excluded from girls' teams and is a birth male, or what is it, birth sex male. So at birth was assigned that gender. And, and I mean, I don't even really know what she's trying to argue. If I were in Justice Alito's shoes, I probably would have started busting out laughing. And I would have said, okay, even you admit that he's a male. So what is that? What is a male? Can you tell me exactly what we're doing here? Okay. And I don't even think she could come up with why they were there, because they couldn't define what a male actually was. Birth sex male. Okay. You're trying to squeeze it, and you're trying to say that it's not genetically determined and that it's assigned at birth. I get that. But what is a male? You're assigned this thing, this term, male at birth. So what is that? Okay. And yeah, it was just a bunch of word salad. Very hard to keep up with because there is no logic here at all. But we could expect this sort of trickery, these sort of mind games, word salad from a lawyer, an attorney, okay, for the plaintiff on the issue. But from a justice of the Supreme Court, DEI, I'm not a biologist, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she was defending men in women's sports, and she had a complete word salad here. Take a listen.
And so to the extent that you have an individual who says what is happening in this law is that it is treating someone who is transgender, but who does not have, because of the medical interventions and the things that have been done, who does not have the same threat to physical competition and safety and all of the reasons that the state puts forward, that's actually a different class, says this individual. So you're not treating the class the same, and you're not, how do you respond to that? In other words, the as-applied challenge essentially redefines the class, or one could think of it as that. And so what's wrong with that, number one, and how do you square that with our holdings in Caban, which Lair later described in this way? In other words, Lair suggested that Caban was establishing that as-applied challenges of this nature do exist.
Certainly, take the second question first.
Yes.
Caban says nothing about as-applied. I know that Lair says later this was an as-applied case, but simply reading Caban, it does not say that. It simply applies intermediate.
No, I understand, but those two cases were in juxtaposition with one another,
Yes.
and Lair comes out the way it does, distinguishing Caban on the basis that it's an as-applied challenge, and we in Lair have a facial challenge, and it's basically the same facts. So if you're right, those two cases can't come out the way they do.
I don't think so, Your Honor. Again, Lair was actually briefed as a standing argument of maybe you might be able to argue that this law is overbroad, but you individually are not in the overbroad part, and therefore you don't get to challenge it. The court didn't use standing language, like express standing language in the opinion, but that is the logic of the opinion.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
There's another way to think about the case your friends on the other side posit, and that is that
Well, that's exhausting word salad, huh? What? She was talking with, speaking to Idaho Solicitor General Alan Hurst, okay? And this is what she says, and I'm just going to quote a little bit of it here. And you try to decipher this. It's almost like speaking Bidenese, okay? Bidenese, trying to decipher what these people are saying. And so to the extent that you have an individual who says what is happening in this law is that it is treating someone who is transgender, but who does not have, because of the medical interventions and the things that have to be done, does not have the same threat to physical competition and safety, and all the reasons the state puts forward, that's actually a different class, okay, says this individual. So you're not treating the class the same. Okay. Huh? What? Let me break it down. Okay. And it's not surprising coming from somebody like Ketanji Brown Jackson, who couldn't define a woman, infamously could not define what a woman was during her confirmation hearing because she, quote, wasn't a biologist. And it got worse from there, to be honest. So there was a new word that Ketanji Brown Jackson came up with. A new word she discovered, and I'm going to play this here in just a second. Hold on. Here we go. I had it pulled up. So before I try to decipher what she had to say about the this is a different class, I am going to share with you the new word that she came up with here during oral argument. Here we go. This is quite hilarious. You guys are going to get a kick out of this. Here we go.
The overarching classification, everybody has to be play on the team that is the same as their sex at birth. But then you have a gender identity definition that is operating within that, meaning a distinction, meaning that for cisgender girls, they can play consistent with their gender identity. For transgender girls, they can't.
So I think that, okay, so as to the part about your ability to pass over from boy to girl,
yes,
you can go from one way but not the other. I want to be clear that BPJ is not challenging that specific classification. I think that's important to start with. But I think, if anything, that's useful evidence as to the lack of a transgender-based discrimination, because if the legislature were just sort of unsettled by the notion of transgender athletes, I think the answer would have been to then bar them from passing over anyone consistent with their gender.
I appreciate that. I guess I was getting at the what I understood the Chief Justice to be trying to discuss, which was this notion that this is really just about the definition of who we accept that you can separate boys and girls, and we are now looking at the definition of a girl, and we're saying only people who were girl assigned at birth qualify.
And
so did you catch it in the very beginning here? She said cisgender girls. Okay. For cisgender girls, they can play consistent with their gender. For transgender girls, they can't. And I'm not sure how this guy, the Virginia Solicitor General Michael Williams, held it together after that, because what the heck is cisgender? And I listened to it several times. I thought I misheard her, but it wasn't slurred. It was quite clear. She said cisgender, not cisgender. So does that mean like redheaded kid who still identifies as a redheaded kid? That's reality. Okay. A cisgender ginger. What is that? What the heck is that? But this is an example of, how they've invented these terms, and they don't even know what the heck they're saying. They've invented terms like cisgender. And in this case, they didn't even use it. The term, they said cisginger. What does that mean? Redheaded kid who identifies as a redheaded kid? That's just reality. It kind of made me think of that South Park episode where they kind of mocked the transgender subject, and they jokingly referred to transgender as transginger. But, how do you respond to Ketanji Brown Jackson? Earlier, I had talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson and what she had said as far as, a class, a different class. They're a different class of people. So let me break that down. And it's very difficult because this is a word salad that would make even Kamala Harris blush with envy. But there is ample evidence that even transgender women, so men pretending to be women, who have gone undergone hormone therapy have, superior muscular, skeletal, cardiorespiratory advantages. Okay, even for those men who have undergone some sort of hormone therapy, they have cardiorespiratory advantages. They have muscular advantages that they were born with and given at conception, being that they have XY chromosomes. Okay. So what Ketanji Brown Jackson is saying here, these transgender women who don't or have undergone hormone therapy, they should be included in women's sports because, those advantages are erased somehow. And I don't know what Justice Jackson is proposing we do here. Is she proposing that we set up examination evaluation centers? Because like I said, even trans women, men who are pretending to be women who undergo those therapies, they tend to still have those cardiorespiratory advantages. They tend to still have muscular skeletal advantages. So I don't know what Justice Jackson wants. Does she want examination centers where we try to determine those born with the advantages, have, been negated after hormone therapy? Like, there's no real way to tell if they negate those physical advantages after hormone therapy unless we were to set up examinations and evaluation centers and test these people like guinea pigs. Is that what she's suggesting we do? And it seems to me the solution is very simple. It's a simple solution. It's biological reality. That is the solution here. In school sports, boys are boys, girls are girls. And the fact that this has even reached the Supreme Court is a bad sign of how the silly segments of our society have become legitimized. I mean, I don't know how this managed to make its all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, but it did. And the silly segments of our society have a voice, and we need to shut that down. So yeah, I don't know what she is exactly saying in her oral arguments. It almost sounded as if she was proposing that if trans women who undergo hormone therapy, they're negating all of their physical advantages and they are a separate class of people and they're being discriminated against because their physical advantages are negated. And like, well, okay, how are we going to ensure that they're negated through the hormone therapy, lady? Are you really suggesting that we set up some sort of evaluation center to see if their physical advantages have been kind of negated out of them through the hormone replacement therapies? Weird, very weird. And it's weird that it got all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. I would have been laughing. I don't know how some of these people held it together. But let's shift gears. Let's talk about the Middle East. This is a big part of the show today. You won't want to miss it. Bookmark it. This is the part of the show you will not want to miss. The Middle East is in for a major realignment if the Islamic Republic of Iran topples. So you guys know that there is a rebellion against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and people are rising up and they're trying to replace the theocracy that exists there, the theocracy of mullahs. And they have been a major player in the Middle East for quite some time. Soon they could be gone because of this rebellion and because we've tariffed the hell out of them. Thank you, President Donald Trump. This is the world's #1 state sponsor of Islamic terrorism. And it's possible that it will be no more, which is cause for celebration. The rest of the planet can breathe a sigh of relief. Now, I don't know if it's imminent. We'll have to see how the rebellion goes. But it's possible that the fall of the mullahs will happen. And that, of course, is going to leave a power vacuum in the region. So there is another major player in that region. And this major player is already looking, I think, to capitalize on the fall of the Iranian theocracy. And the major player we're talking about today is Saudi Arabia. So as Iran weakens, a power vacuum is emerging across the Middle East, and Saudi Arabia is moving in to fill it by recalibrating their relations with formal rivals. Okay, and they are hedging global partnerships and asserting more independent foreign policy, according to several experts. And we can kind of just see it where Saudi Arabia, they have definitely, through Donald Trump's presidency, recalibrated their relationship with us. So Javad Ali, this is a senior official at the National Security Council and professor at the University of Michigan. He told Fox News Digital that, quote, since Iran's 1979 revolution, both Saudi Arabia and Iran have vied for influence across the broader Muslim world. Okay, so they've been kind of battling it out, duking it out for influence across the Muslim world, the Middle East. So Mohammed bin Salman, okay, his consolidation of power in the kingdom has also introduced a markedly different vision from that of his predecessors. So Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia, okay, he's got a different vision from some of the predecessors he's had, okay, and he looks a little bit different than other people who have been in charge of Saudi Arabia, okay. Now, Saudi Arabia, their recent moves from Yemen to Turkey are fueling debate over whether Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, his expanding, there's been debates whether him expanding his regional role aligns with the U.S. interest. Okay, so let me break this down. So he is getting more and more of a regional role. So not just Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince, and let's just call him MBS. Okay, MBS. He's been getting more of a regional presence and having a regional role, and we're sort of hesitant about this because Saudi Arabia is a very different country than the United States. Although we've been kind of recalibrating our relationship with Saudi Arabia and they've been sort of chummy with us, is this good for the United States that this guy, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, is gaining regional influence? So Bloomberg, they reported on January 9th that Turkey is seeking entry into the Saudi-Pakistan Mutual Defense Pact signed 4 months earlier, according to people familiar with talks. Okay, so Turkey is wanting to get in on an ally partnership or get in on a relationship with Saudi. And there's a Saudi-Pakistan Defense Pact that they have, okay, where they're allies. So the Crown Prince, MBS, is what we're going to call him, has appeared to be pro-America, pro-American policies many, many times. He has reiterated a pro-America policy to President Donald Trump. He's met with President Donald Trump several times. Their meetings are usually, backslapping and very friendly. Usually when they get together, it's sort of friendly. Saudi Arabia has been an American ally for years, but it is a very different society from ours. It's so different that it's hard to even comprehend. It is a little bit of a theocracy, not nearly to the extent the Islamic Republic of Iran, but this country is essentially a family business, and the king is a no-kidding monarch, okay, and the kingdom has theocratic elements to it. Okay, so women are still treated like second-class citizens in Saudi Arabia, okay, and there is not even a whiff of religious freedom over in Saudi Arabia. Okay, but no nation has permanent friends. Okay, we only have permanent interests. The Saudis will only be American allies if it's in their best interest. The strong United States that we have today, affects this friendship that we have, and a weak United States, let's say under Joe Biden, weakens the incentive for other countries, including Saudi Arabia, to maintain a close relationship with us. Now, Fox News Digital, we've got Michael Rubin. He's a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. He said that Saudi Arabia's current trajectory must be viewed through years of accumulated frustration with U.S. policy. So here's what he means by that. To be fair to NBS, this Saudi Arabia crown prince, previous U.S. administrations did not uphold their end of the bargain. Okay, now I've talked about President Donald Trump before. I really struggle, and I've shared personally with you that I really struggle with Islam and Muslims and Islamic extremism. They are particularly unkind, and that's putting it lightly, to Christians. They behead Christians, burn down their churches. If you are a Christian, don't wear your cross in Iran. Okay, you will be beheaded. And I struggle with hatred when it comes to radical Islam. Okay, I have hatred in my heart with radical Islam. I actually listened to some missionaries. They were in Indonesia, and they said something that really stuck with me, is that Jesus died for the Muslim people too. Okay, so Donald Trump has this way about him of creating peace, and he's been working with Saudi Arabia. Now, to be fair to MBS, and this is according to Rubin, this senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, he says U.S. administrations, prior U.S. administrations, not Donald Trump, they haven't upheld their end of the bargain. And he's pointed to the Houthis. Okay, so we all know the Houthis attacked Saudi Arabia territory. The Houthis launched hundreds of drones and rockets, and Barack Obama ignored that. The Obama administration ignored that and ignored the Saudis, and they weren't happy with the United States. And even prior to Barack Obama, they've been ignored, although they are considered an ally of the United States. A new prosperous Iran with a semi-secular government, okay, mostly secular, Saudi Arabia. There's elements of theocracy still a part of their government, but that would change a lot of things if Saudi Arabia filled this power vacuum. Okay, that could potentially happen with Iran falling. And if Western sanctions were lifted on a reborn Persia, there would be a major player in the Middle East, but we would have a new Iran Persia. Okay, and that's what we hope for anyway. They would be a major economic player and not a major state sponsor of terrorism. That is a constant threat to the entire world, the entire region, the entire world. Okay, we saw what happened in Australia with the Jewish people. So this would be huge if Saudi Arabia fills that power vacuum because, secular, like I said, they have theocratic elements to their government, but mostly secular. It would change a lot of things. And the fact that we've got a player, an economic player in the Middle East through this new Iran, which is the hope, that's big because we're not only taking out a major state sponsor of terrorism, but we're adding a major economic player. So we shouldn't expect a complete shift, okay, in the Middle East and in this new Iran, if it were to happen. I don't think that people are going to be eating burgers over in Iran, okay, if Saudi Arabia takes over. I don't think that they're going to have a Western style of government, of course, but it would be great to see a resurgent Iran, translate the United States Constitution into Farsi and adopt it as their governing document. And I don't think that's going to happen either. I don't think that this new Iran is going to have something similar to a United States Constitution. But I do think that there could be some sort of parliament system if Saudi Arabia were to fill that power vacuum. And it's not unreasonable to expect that, some sort of parliament system. So if Iran falls, yes, there will be a power vacuum. And the Saudis are going to seek to capitalize on that. And it's in their interest to do so. And as long as we have a competent United States, Saudi will continue to be our allies. Despite a lot of prior U.S. administrations like Barack Obama ignoring them when the Houthis were drone striking the hell out of them, like they're still cozy with President Donald Trump. Now, that's why 2028 is so important. We have got to get somebody in there who's going to preserve that relationship, or at least not stand by when the Houthis are droning our ally, right? So I don't know. This all depends, obviously, on the revolution that's going on in Iran. If that revolution succeeds, the rebellion against the Islamic Republic, and what arises to replace the monstrous rule of these mullahs over in Iran. Hopefully, I would like to see Saudi Arabia. I'm hesitant because, like I said, Saudi Arabia, they still treat women like second-class citizens. There's still somewhat of a theocracy over there, theocratic elements to their government. But right now, MBS, that guy likes Trump, likes the United States. Probably sees the United States as beneficial to him in his country. So we want to keep it that way. Anyway, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Let's get to some Illinois things. I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about home insurance because if you have Allstate, it's going up. Okay, so this is the Conservative Cat Show, perched on the windowsill of common sense, watching Springfield try once again to fix a problem that it helped create. We're going to get to that here next on the Conservative Cat Show. I'll be right back. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth lands hard. I'm your host, Cat. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that ought to make every Illinois taxpayer's blood boil. You're funding the abortion industry, and the abortion industry is very, very funded by the state of Illinois. So we're going to be zooming in on Illinois. What used to be the land of Lincoln is now the Midwest's abortion sanctuary. Under Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois has gone full throttle into becoming what he proudly calls the beacon for reproductive rights. Translation, come one, come all. Have your abortions here, and the taxpayers are going to pick up the tab. In 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the so-called Reproductive Health Act, making abortion, quote, a fundamental right in Illinois. But that wasn't all. He also repealed the Parental Notification Act for minors getting abortions. So that means little Susie, if she's 12 years old, she doesn't need her parents' permission to go get an abortion. Your 13-year-old daughter can get an abortion in Illinois, even without you knowing. And while Illinois families are struggling with inflation, property taxes, and rising crime, guess where your tax dollars are going? The last few years, few years, just tens of millions of dollars of Illinois taxpayer dollars have gone to Planned Parenthood in just a few years, tens of millions of dollars. And they're not going to just fund the procedure itself. They're paying for out-of-state women to come here and abort their babies. It includes transportation, lodging costs, and logistical support, whatever the hell that means. I'm probably paying for some woman to get a McDonald's sandwich while she's here in the state. And literally, we're running a state-sponsored abortion tourism business. That's what we're doing here in the state. And let's not forget Planned Parenthood CEO salaries. Over $670,000 for Alexis McGill Johnson. Regional directors, they make about like six figures too. So your paycheck is shrinking, their paycheck is growing, and your roads have potholes, but Planned Parenthood thriving. Pritzker loves to pose as a champion for women, but let's be honest, this isn't even about ideology. It's about power and money. He's not protecting women. He's protecting Planned Parenthood's bottom line and all of these people raking in that CEO cash. And Illinois is now the abortion capital of the Midwest because he made it that way, Governor J.B. Pritzker. Illinois used to be about opportunity and family values. Now it's the go-to state for late-term abortion. Over 46,000 abortions in Illinois were done in 2022 or 2023 alone. 46,000 in Illinois alone, and many of you paid for that. And under Governor J.B. Pritzker, that number is just going to keep going up and up and up every single year. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that taxpayer-funded abortion is not compassionate. It's corruption. And all of these people are making tons of money. And it's time we demand real leadership. It's time we step up and demand that they stop funding this madness. It's time we stand for life here in the state of Illinois. What do you think? Hey, hit that like button, share this out with your friend. Today's topic, home insurance, homeowners insurance, your bill, your roof, and the politicians who think that they can regulate the weather, because Illinois homeowners, you guys are going to probably be paying more again. Allstate, they filed a $58 million rate increase, and that's going to affect 300,000 policyholders. And that is set to hit February 24th. So your home insurance is going up likely, especially if you have Allstate and State Farm. They've announced rate hikes. Okay. So they filed a $58 million Allstate rate increase, and that's going to affect a lot of policyholders. So naturally, you've got Springfield sniffing around, looking for an opportunity here. So let's start with the facts, because feelings don't stop tornadoes. Okay, Allstate, they raised homeowner rates by more than $100 million last year. Okay, so they raised those rates. They raised them again this time. Now they're back with another 8 to 9% on average. So whatever your home insurance bill is now, tack on 8%. Okay. Some folks are going to see double-digit hikes. Okay. And this sucks. It really does. But we've got to look at this holistically here. Okay. Consumer advocates are saying that this proves that Illinois does not have enough oversight over rate hikes. Okay. So insurance groups say the opposite. They say that there's too much oversight. And too much oversight is going to chase away insurers out of the state. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Both sides are partly right. Yes, rate hikes hurt. But there's a reason why these rate hikes are happening. And Springfield is the reason why, because cost of building materials is way too high. Businesses are being chased out. So, the businesses that Allstate contracts out to go fix your home after a tornado strikes, they're leaving the state because of mandates, because of high property taxes. So insurance companies are not charities. Okay. And, we don't want to risk Illinois becoming California. And here's what I mean. According to the Center Square, PIRG, this is the advocacy group, Director Abe Scar says the solution is simple. He wants language added to the Illinois Insurance Code that says that rates can't be excessive. They shouldn't be inadequate, which is a good thing. Yes, rates shouldn't be inadequate because you want your insurer to have enough money to pay out somebody to come fix your house after a tornado, and they should not be unduly discriminatory home insurance rates. But here's the conservative cat question. Who decides what excessive means? Okay, because once you give Springfield vague authority, it never really stays vague. Okay, lawmakers, they debated a bill last fall session. Okay, so the fall veto session just recently. And this bill would have given the Illinois Department of Insurance power to review and reject rate hikes. Okay, so we're entering a territory here where insurers in Illinois are no longer private companies, but they are regulated by the government. So much so where they can't even determine their own rates, okay, what they charge you. So this bill that was debated in the fall veto session passed the Senate, did not pass the House. It failed in the House. Okay, so PIRG said the bill was flawed. They wanted the bill to go further. They wanted the bill to require review of all hikes, okay, rate hikes. And this bill did not apply to auto insurance industry, okay, just the homeowners. So they wanted the bill to go further. They're probably going to come back for more in the spring session, but they're trying to control the market, okay, with this language. And no rate hikes are terrible, but here's the thing. They come up with those rate hikes via an actuarial analysis, and then they submit that to the Illinois Department of Insurance already. Okay, now, if they were just greedy, corporate, and I think that there could be an element of that going on, but they'd have to submit that actuarial analysis, and I don't think that it's enough to say that, oh, the rate hikes are coming from a place of greed. I don't think it's enough to come out and say that definitively. Like maybe a little, but not really. They've got to be profitable. But really what's going on is the rate hikes are coming from building materials being so high in the state, businesses fleeing the state, and it's expensive to have homeowner insurance here in the state of Illinois. Now, politicians don't want you to say this out loud. Illinois weather sucks. It's brutal as well. Okay, in 2023, Illinois led the entire nation in tornadoes. We've had hailstorms, wind damage, flooding, all of that. And according to the Illinois Insurance Association, cited in the Center Square, for 8 of the last 10 years, insurers have paid out more in claims than they've collected in premiums. Now, that, of course, is the insurance company saying that, the insurance special interest group. Now, I kind of believe it because we've had some crazy tornadoes, crazy weather lately. And, even if there is a little bit of corporate greed going on, that's just corporations being corporations. Okay. Walmart's greedy too. Okay. They're trying to make as much money as possible. Now, here's the thing, though. I don't think that they're going to get away with excessive greed because they have to submit already an actuarial analysis to the Illinois Department of Insurance. And an analysis is going to reveal how much is greed. And it's probably not enough to say that, oh, this is excessive and you guys are just trying to make money off of people. Which, yeah, they are trying to do that. Okay. It's a business. So Kevin Martin of the Illinois Insurance Association says this in the Center Square. Rate increases don't go into CEO pockets. Okay. They go into a reserve so the companies can actually pay the claims when disaster strikes. Now, you don't want your insurer broke after a storm hits. Okay. Because that's how you end up with delayed claims, denied coverage, or no insurer at all. Okay, if they wind up broke, if there's rate hikes that are denied at a state level, at the government level, they're going to leave the state of Illinois. We've seen it already in California. Ask California homeowners how it's going over there, okay? Because they had rate control in their state in California, and State Farm said, enough's enough, we're leaving. And that's not good for anybody, because once competition leaves, the prices go up. So, people will bring up the talking points of, well, Allstate reported $3.7 billion profit in Q3 of 2025. Yeah, well, they're a business. We probably would want them profitable. We don't want them not to be profitable, because that means they're not a successful business, which means that they can't provide coverage to consumers. But here's my response. Consumer advocates will say, see, they can't afford it because they've got all this profit. Insurance markets are cyclical. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Some years they're extremely profitable, but there have been years where they're not profitable, disastrous years. So their profits go to help cover bad years, massive storms, and profitable years mean long-term solvency. Like, these people have never obviously signed. People who want to regulate and over-regulate the insurance industry have never understood business, and they've never signed the front of a check, a paycheck for someone. So if companies can't price risk accurately, they do one of two things. They're going to stop writing policies, or they'll leave the state entirely. And when competition disappears, that's not good. Okay, because prices will go up. So say Allstate leaves because Illinois comes up with these rate hike or rate management, this rate regulation. Allstate leaves. That's not good, because there's no competition. Allstate is going to be fighting with State Farm, and they're going to keep trying to go lower and lower on their premiums, or on their rates, to try to get more profits. You get what I'm saying? So prices go up, not down, when competition disappears. And just ask anybody in California. They're dealing with that right now because State Farm left. There's not options 1, 2, competition, and everything's going up. So Illinois, what we currently have is what's called a use and file system. Okay, what that means is insurers have to submit what I've called an actuarial analysis data, and they have to justify their rates to an extent. Okay, so that's already a thing. They can't implement rates without, submitting this actuarial analysis. Now, it's up to the Department of Insurance to look at that actuarial analysis and determine if the rates are, legitimate and not just a product of corporate greed. Okay, so the department probably didn't even really look at the actuarial analysis, because it's government and they suck and they really don't do anything, but sit there and twiddle their thumbs because they are losers in the public sector. Anyway, Illinois homeowners, we pay an average of $200 to $300 less per year than homeowners in, say, comparative states like California with big populations, or dense cities like New York, California. We're up there with them, and they have heavy regulation. We pay $200 to $300 less than California. Now, we still pay astronomically high rates, and that is because of the building materials and cost, and businesses that are used by Allstate, State Farm to contract out the work. When a storm hits, they're leaving the state because of the taxation, the property taxes, the fiscal mismanagement that has led to the property taxes being so high, the pension crisis, $145 billion in pension debt. Okay, so California did aggressive rate controls, and the result was they left. The insurers stopped writing policies. The homeowners got dropped. They're no longer insured. And the state stepped in. And this is what I think the true intention is here, is to get the insurers to leave. I don't think that they want the insurers to stay. Okay. The Dems and pro-government people, pro-big government people, they want the insurers to leave so that way the state can step in with a government-backed insurer. So what does that mean? You, me, your neighbor, we're all paying via taxes into a little kitty, and they're going to disperse coverage, and that's all going to be done by the government. So you're starting to see that in California, and that's freaky, where politicians control pricing of your homeowner's insurance. And I'm sorry, I don't want that. And they're gonna shift it all to taxpayer funded insurance, where they take your money from you and you don't willingly give it. Okay. And they provide you services that are going to suck, because look at the post office, look at literally any government agency and tell me that they do it better than the private sector. You can't. Okay. So Illinois doesn't have an insurance problem. They have a risk problem. Okay. So when a storm hits, there's aging infrastructure. So even in our municipalities or towns, you can see the aging infrastructure when you roll through some of these towns in Illinois. We've got exorbitantly high property taxes, which I think are a direct result from the pension crisis, the $145 billion in pension debt. We're promising people like Barry Riley from District 87 $200,000 in a pension in retirement. That's just not fiscally responsible. Okay. And that's leading to high property taxes. There's things that we can do to correct the high property taxes. In fact, I talked about it the other day. We should give the local municipalities their 10% of the local distributed fund, the local government distributed fund, and not the 6 or 7% that they're currently getting, because, they changed that law in 2012, and we should be taking some of our state income, the 10% of the state income, and giving it to the local municipalities so they're not constantly raising property taxes to fulfill their pension obligations. Just give them the money that they're supposed to have, and that should keep the property taxes lower. But anyway, there's expensive rebuilding costs because everything is so heavily regulated. Say you have a construction company, okay, and just recently I talked about, well, there's not really women in construction, but let's just, for argument's sake, recently I talked about women being paid for breastfeeding, okay, breaks, okay. So not only, and I wouldn't even be all that opposed to saying like, hey, you can't fire somebody because they're breastfeeding, because I think that would be discriminatory against women. But they're forcing Illinois companies and businesses, small businesses, to pay for women to go and pump while they're on the job. That can get expensive, and, that's not great for small businesses. Say a small business was a construction company and they're doing that. And there's multiple examples of Illinois mandating small businesses, part-time employees that've got to have, some sort of paid leave, things like that. Illinois mandates that kind of stuff all the time. And it gets expensive to do that. So what does the construction company do? Well, they raise their prices. And when Allstate goes to contract out construction companies, it's pretty costly, which is why the homeowner insurance rates go up. It's costly to contract out the construction workers, because the construction workers are dealing with over-regulation and mandates, unfunded mandates. So, and we also have extreme severe weather here in the state of Illinois. Okay, so though that's not, an insurance problem or a oversight problem where we don't have enough oversight over the insurance companies, these can all be fixed. I just provided a couple of examples how we could fix high property taxes. businesses, they're not, the businesses that have the lumber and stuff, they're not staying in the state of Illinois because of the high property taxes. People are leaving, which makes property taxes even higher because the tax base is smaller. So I just provided a couple of examples of how we could fix that issue. Don't give the Barry Rileys of the world a $200,000 pension when they leave. Okay. We need to correct the pensions and make it to where, Becky, who is teaching your kids, ABCs, she doesn't get a $100,000 pension when she, over $100,000 pension when she retires. I'm sorry, Becky, but that's a little too high. Okay. Thanks for teaching my kindergartner how to read. Most people can do that. And I'm not trying to be mean to school teachers, but yeah, most people, parents teach their kids to read all the time. Teaches them their ABCs. There's no reason why Becky has to have a six-figure salary or six-figure pension. Okay, so there's ways to fix the property tax thing. That will help with the rate hikes and the rates, the homeowners rates, insurance rates. There's ways to, address the expensive costs, the rebuilding construction costs. So severe weather, we can't really do much about that. But addressing aging infrastructure, making it affordable for Illinoisans to invest in their homes and keep the maintenance up on their homes, because if you have a high property tax bill, that comes first, obviously, because you want to avoid jail. People neglect maintenance on their homes, which can make claims higher when a tornado strikes. So you can regulate rates all day long, but if the risk keeps rising, the bill still comes due. Okay, we've got extreme risks here in Illinois. That's why the prices are extremely high here in Illinois, and it's $200 to $300 less than states of the similar size, population size. And insurers are going to leave if you regulate them. Okay, we saw it in California. Government becoming an insurer, that is freaky. Okay, they're going to take your money. There's going to be more bureaucracy, slower payouts, because when has government ever done anything right? Okay, so nobody likes high insurance bills, but pretending that Springfield can micromanage risk better than the actuaries is a fantasy. Okay, the lawmakers, if they want to help homeowners, you need to reduce the building costs. And how do you do that? You take the red tape off of these businesses and you stop mandating things like pet bereavement days, okay, for part-time workers or something gay like that. Okay, you stop doing that. Okay, reduce the building costs. How do you reduce the building costs? Take the red tape off the businesses that build and construct. We improve infrastructure. How do we do that? We keep more money in Illinoisans' pockets to invest in their homes. And how do we do that? Stop it with the exorbitant taxes and the property taxes. Okay. Stop driving businesses out of the state of Illinois so we can keep a sustainable tax base. Okay. Like this is all like really easy stuff. Okay. Because once competition leaves, say these insurers leave, they're not coming back. And once competition leaves, they're not competing with each other for lower prices or competing with each other for the most insured, or to get people insured with them, State Farm, Allstate. Once one of them leaves, there's no incentive to lower the prices. Okay, if you just have one insurer, they can charge whatever the hell they want. So I want to end with one more story. This is the Chicago Public Schools. This is hilarious. You guys are going to get a kick out of this. So Chicago Public School students, I feel so bad for them. Their teaching officials can't spell the word governor. No, literally. Check this out. I've got this pulled up here. The Chicago Teachers Union. The teaching officials, and like I said, I'm sorry, Becky, but your $100,000 a year pension does not make sense. Okay. You taught kids how to read, I could have done it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, and that's one thing that President Donald Trump has done. What did he do with the nurses and the teachers? And I should do a show on this. I didn't even do it. Where they're not getting certain degrees. I forget what President Donald Trump did. Let me look real quick. They're no longer classifying nursing as a professional degree. And I think that they did the same thing for teachers. So, yeah, I think that's awesome. Because let's be honest, it's a skill. Some people have the skill, some people don't. Nursing, these are things that can be taught. Doctor would be a professional. There's a certain requirement of like knowledge, anatomy knowledge, medicine, things like that nurses aren't required to have. Now, do they go through those classes now? Yeah, but there's no reason for it. The job that nurses are supposed to do and the job that teachers are supposed to do, it's a skill, and it should be treated as such. So that way, teachers and nurses don't have to go out and pay these huge schooling bills. There's just no reason for it. Nurses, they can tend to the wounds. It's a very hands-on job where they, IVs, things like that. And I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers of, the teachers and the nurses in the comments. But it is a skill, and that is different. So the doctors typically, and this is how it works in a hospital, they'll dictate what they want the nurses to do, and the nurses do it blindly. Okay, so, and it's more of a physical blue collar. It should be a blue collar job, not requiring a degree. Teachers, they're not professionals. You probably teach every single day in your profession, whether you're a manufacturer or a McDonald's employee. You have a new employee show up, you're training them on the job. Okay, that is what teaching is. It is training a child up in the way he or she should go. And it should be viewed as such. And I applaud the Trump administration for having the cojones to say it. These are very female dominated fields, by the way, and females tend to get a little pissy when you say, hey, you're not a professional. Like, they get really offended by that. And it's just like, there's, professional versus a skilled worker. There's really no difference, because we're all God's children. Doesn't mean that you're better than me because you're professional and I'm a skilled worker. Okay, I'm not saying that, but women take it that way once you start to call it what it is, which is skilled work. Okay, so anyway, I went off on a tangent there. I'll do an entire show on that. I could easily do an entire show on that. But the Chicago Teachers Union. So here's what I've got for you here. Okay, this is kind of funny stuff. The Chicago Teachers Union, they posted this. This is really funny. And the internet is forever, by the way. They deleted this shortly after they put it up. But the internet is forever. People got screenshots. So the Chicago Teachers Union, they released an ad campaign where they're urging residents to send letters to the governor. They did not spell that governor. They did not spell governor correctly. And they want to make the ultra wealthy pay their fair share to fully fund schools. My gosh. Okay. So they have deleted this campaign post, by the way, because it was very embarrassing. Besides the comical misspelling of governor, there's several things wrong here. First, the Chicago public school system is one of the most funded districts in the nation. They deliver awful reading rates, math scores, and it's unsurprising here when we look at those scores of the students. They can't read at grade level, can't do math at grade level. It's unsurprising considering these people can't spell. Clearly, they can't spell if their lives depended on it. This is an embarrassing campaign because they have their little panhandling attempt here. That's what this is. It's a panhandling attempt. There has been a report that has revealed that this school system spent a staggering $14.5 million on excessive travel expenses in 2023 and fiscal year 2024 combined. So in just 2 years' time, they spent $14.5 million on excessive travel. Okay, so the Chicago Public School credit rating is similar to countries like Azerbaijan, Colombia, Morocco, Vietnam, places like Serbia and Hungary. They and among other nations, they have a better credit rating than Chicago Public Schools. So not only can they not spell, clearly, because of this little campaign that they've got out there, they misspelled the word governor, but they fail the students. They can't read, do math at grade level, but they're also spending exorbitant amounts of, they're overfunded, highest funded school district in the nation. But they're spending their money very poorly. Like I said, the travel, excessive travel. So that's not necessary travel. That's excessive travel. They spent $14.5 million on. But also, it's been revealed that they used COVID funds. So the emergency COVID funds they used on lavish trips. There's been hundreds of thousands of dollars, and this is just a fun little factoid. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on balloons, like balloon displays. There's actually someone who works at CPS who puts up balloons displays. They're getting a salary, and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on balloon displays. Okay, and you can't make this insanity up. COVID funds for lavish trips. Again, the students deserve so much better. They do, than the people running this district. And this is a national embarrassment. Chicago Public Schools is a national embarrassment that's run by a bunch of woke, corrupt leftists. And they put the students last. They do their lavish trips, their balloon displays, their excessive travel. They do all of that first, and they put the students last. And it's deeply pathetic and completely unacceptable. It's time to make Chicago Public Schools great again. And it starts with defunding and dismantling the teachers' union. If you're a teacher, leave the union. You don't have to be a part of that union, and you don't have to contribute via membership dues. And that's how you make Chicago Public Schools great again. You dismantle that teachers' union from within inside. And you don't have to be a part of the union. Don't do it. All right, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and visit patriotpumpenergy.com if you want to support the program. Purchase your bottle of premium pre-workout today. This is our fruit punch flavor, 150 milligrams of caffeine. A lot of people tell me that they do 2 scoops a day. But, you know, I like the 1 scoop a day. That's plenty of caffeine for me, 150 milligrams. Some energy drinks will have 300 milligrams of caffeine and like 200 grams of sugar or something crazy ridiculous like that. Or, yeah. And this is a much cleaner product. No artificial colors. So check it out. Look at the supplement facts. See if it's the right fit for you. Use promo code ConservativeCat at checkout. We're going to be back tomorrow, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Bye-bye. Love you so much.